never lost it.
And Grant, the combination of Giannis and Lillard, one of the most fearsome pick-and-roll tandems the league has ever seen.
You're spot on, B.A. You surround them with shooting, and you have the makings of an offensive juggernaut.
And here's Antetokounmpo. He'll bring it up for Milwaukee. First chance of the season for them to go up against Atlanta.
And they were the odds-on favorite in this matchup last year, but actually lost the season series.
Here's Daniels doing some damage on the offensive end, putting up a little over 14 points a game. Driving inside. It's Milwaukee with a rebound.
I mean, come on, that's a shot you expect him to make.
Here's Antetokounmpo. And Antetokounmpo with the stuff.
And good luck stopping that. Giannis just makes it look so easy.
And so it's Quinn Snyder here calling timeout. He wants to review the game plan. Here's Atlanta with the ball. 6-point game. Outplayed in the previous game on their schedule. They lost to the Rockets.
They failed to create enough good looks. The ball movement just wasn't quite where it needed to be.
Yeah, they had a hard time getting the looks they wanted on offense. And it's hard to get a win when that's the case.
A moment to hear from Allie LaForce.
I briefly spoke with Quinn Snyder. Of course, we talked mostly about Giannis Antetokounmpo, the focus of this one. Coach telling me I've lost sleep thinking about Giannis. He can just take over a game, no matter how you play him. We're hoping he'll be a little off tonight. Do off nights exist for Giannis, guys? We'll find out.
Okay, thank you, Allie.
And early on, they've been on a tear, just getting whatever they want offensively.
Yeah, I mean, this is exactly how you want to start a game, with a big offensive push.
To end the run, Antetokounmpo with the block. And so the ball out of bounds. Antetokounmpo touched it last. And Atlanta making a change here. The three. And Atlanta misses again. And it's Lillard with the ball for the Bucks. They couldn't put the pieces together, losing that last matchup with Phoenix.
And it was just a strange loss. They were far from their best, but still managed to keep it close.
Yeah, and those are the type of losses that kept me up late at night. They were 1-2 plays away. You think about every possibility just to get 1 or 2 more buckets.
Here's Daniels. Outside Young. Daniels, that one's true.
So strong at the rim. That'll serve Daniels well here in this league.
And here's Lillard from beyond the arc. Atlanta with a rebound.
And the defense got away with one there. I mean, that's the shot he typically makes.
And Young gets it to go.
And they may have talked about shot selection coming into this.
The Bucks leading by 6. Kuzma outside. Back to Lillard. The three from Prince. Okongwu with the rebound. Here's LeVert. Still no points. Pass to Okongwu. Here's Gay. LeVert outside. Now Okongwu. Clock is at 3. Good work defensively by Lopez. 19 seconds left to play in the first quarter. The kick out to Kuzma. Yes, great play by Lillard to set it up.
Yeah, and this is the shot Kuzma wanted. He's put in the work to be consistent from the corners.
Back to Daniels. Here's LeVert. No good. Would have counted had it gone. Giannis Antetokounmpo has been on display for the Bucks.
The Bucks, 17.
Great to have you with us. Second quarter of basketball. This game has not exactly been neck and neck, but plenty of time left in this one. All right, what stands out to you from Milwaukee in this one?
Well, they've used the fast break well to score easy points and keep the defense unsettled.
Yeah, they've dictated the pace to this point, looking to run at every opportunity.
Pass to Niang. Back to LeVert. Over Prince. Not enough on that one as it misses. And six-man, a common term in basketball, has a unique meaning for the Atlanta Hawks, Grant.
Yeah, it's the name of their fan base. Extremely loyal and passionate. And they've swayed the outcome of games.
Oh, stolen by Lillard. And Dame Dalla completing the break.
On the fast break, Lillard's quickness makes him almost unstoppable. Just beating the D up the floor.
Well, when you move the ball, you open up the defense. Great job to make the unselfish play.
Now here's Kuzma. 15 in his last outing. Antetokounmpo for three. Good. And it's Lillard who picks up the assist.
Crazy.
Antetokounmpo's got 11 points.
And some fans wince when he takes them. But Giannis can and will hit the occasional three-point shot.
And so it's Quinn Snyder here calling timeout. He'll take the opportunity to regroup. And the Hawks will go for a different look here. Hawks trail by 12. And keeping us updated from the sideline, Allie LaForce.
Damian Lillard last season becoming the 51st NBA player ever to cross the 20,000-point threshold and the 17th fastest to ever do it. He said it's a great accomplishment and a rare space to be in. I'm like, man, I might be able to get 27 or 28,000 if I can stay healthy. Ryan, I won't put it past him.
Yeah, me either. Thanks, Allie. This is his second trip to the free throw line in this one.
It's hard to forget how much he struggled from the line during their last matchup.
And there's a bevy of young talent in the NBA right now. Who are you most excited to see grow into a star, Stan?
Well, what I'm really excited about, Brian, is to see which of these young talents becomes true stars, transformative guys. Certainly, Chet Holmgren and Wembanyama have already had this great rivalry. Scotty Barnes has become the next big point guard. We see Anthony Edwards, Paolo Banchero. There's a lot of guys that could be the guy, and it'll be fun to find out who actually develops into that play.
As the torch is passed, who's going to take the mantle? Now here's Young. Takes a three. Another miss for him. He's 2 for 6. Here's Antetokounmpo. Oh, down low, the Greek Freak.
Well, he's been very reliable tonight. Not wasting any chances, really using his head.
Gay misses.
Excellent use of his physical gifts. Goes up strong and captures the board. They're really dictating the tempo on both ends of the court. You love it.
Absolutely. They're playing their game and executing at a real high level. Everything is working for them right now.
Here's Daniels. Young looking around to halt the run. And so he draws the foul, headed to the line to shoot a pair.
And Young is so good at drawing contact. Defenders have to be very disciplined guarding him.
Well, Coach, we know how good Young is offensively, but he gets heavy criticism for his defense.
Yeah, look, and at 6'1", 164 pounds, he has some obvious limitations, Brian, but he's shown improved effort as a defender, and it shows in his defensive rating.
And you have to have that scoring ability on the floor. Antetokounmpo with the block.
Giannis puts his touch on every aspect of the game. Big reach on display that time.
Hawks trail by 17. And he lobs it up to the rim. Back to Young. Pass to Okongwu. To the middle. Here's Gay. Oh, nice fake, but the layup's off the mark. And he ends that fast break chance. An intentional foul. That's a textbook example of the transition take foul rule. And he's got his first opportunity at the line here tonight.
Number 10.
Well, Grant, from roster to coaching changes, the Bucks have been trying to become an even more elite team.
Yeah, teams are always tinkering now these days, B.A. The Bucks know they are a high-level team, but they want to dominate the competition on another level.
Knocks it down from distance. Lillard's got 9.
And this has been the story for them so far. They've been lights out from range, particularly in this quarter.
Come on,
And
bro.
so it's
Hurry up,
Quinn
bro.
Snyder here calling timeout. He's going to gather the troops and talk it over. There's a minute 12 left in the second. Left side man. Down low. Here's Wallace. Oh, and makes it with the kiss. Wallace has got his first basket.
Getting enough shots in close to play inside out.
Trent outside. Porter with it. Checking his stats, he's scoring around 9.5 points per game.
That's just a great pass. Excellent vision to see the open spot in the defense and lead him to the score.
Wallace misses. And it's Porter with the ball for the Bucks. A 21-point lead, the biggest in the game. The ball's knocked loose. And a fast break now for the Hawks. Oh, a huge slam! An exclamation point on that break.
On the fast break, LeVert's energy is everything. He sticks with the play the whole way and sinks it.
Jackson outside. Porter looks it over. LeVert with a rebound.
Well, that one should be in his wheelhouse, but just off the mark.
Wallace misses. Gets it off. That one doesn't drop. So as we conclude the first half, a fairly one-sided game. Bucks ahead, up 19. And we'll be back for the second half following the break. Keep it right here on 2K Sports. And with the second half upon us, we'll find out if this game becomes the rout that it's threatening to be. Hawks trail by 19. Here's Okongwu. Oh, the dunk by Okongwu.
Well, he's a bit of an undersized center. However, his leaping ability can certainly mask that.
On the wing, Daniels. And down it goes. Jam that one home.
Get it, young fella. Dyson Daniels has a lot of tools, showing his hops on that one.
And coach, with Okongwu adding a 3 to his game, it's hard to keep him off the floor now.
It is, Brian, and he can do a lot for a team when he plays. He can now spread out the floor. He can guard multiple positions. But the main thing Okongwu does is he is all over the glass.
Count the basket.
That's 10 straight points they've given up in the painted area.
And you watch Dyson Daniels on the floor, coach. He's everywhere on defense.
Yeah, Brian, he's one of the best guys disrupting offenses and getting deflections. He gets his hands in passing lanes. Effort like that will always find minutes.
This is his first trip to the free throw line tonight. Well, Grant, when the money's on the line, the mid-range is still a big part of the elite player's game.
You're right, B.A. And really, it comes down to touch, obviously. And size certainly helps. And then the savvy and balance to create that space. And it's amazing. Their slim advantage on the board seems a lot larger than it is.
Well, halftime is supposed to be for adjustments. I'm sure this isn't what they had in mind.
Young drawing the double team. Inside. Here's Okongwu. That's in. Coming off an assist from Young. Okongwu's gotten 4 this quarter.
All 5 guys are in sync. Their ball movement is flawless.
Jackson for 3. Gay with a rebound.
Well, 4 failed attempts to start this half. Not what they wanted out of the locker room.
Let's check in with our reporter, Allie LaForce.
Brian, with the Bucs switching coaches midway through last season, Doc Rivers, experienced with star-laden rosters, he said, quote, "I resist thinking that you can't coach players. I have no problem holding them accountable. If you don't do it, you're not going to win." Brian, the pressure's on to get it done.
The burden of expectations. It's title or bust. Thanks, Allie. Pass to Jackson. Pulls it from the top of the key. Buries the jump shot.
Timeout.
Jackson's got his second basket on the night.
Well, that's probably not the shot they were looking for, but hey, when it goes in, everybody's happy.
And so it's Quinn Snyder here calling timeout. We might see him looking to make some tweaks to the strategy here.
Substitution on the court.
Hawks trail by 15. Pass to Barlow. LeVert up top. His offense has been solid, scoring around 11.5 points a game. It's stolen by Trent. A little over 2.5 minutes off the clock in this final half of play.
Yeah, not at his most efficient this quarter. He's got to work on finding high percentage shots.
Pass to Barlow. To the wing on the left. Tries to keep it alive. Jackson left side. Trent outside. And the foul called on Caris LeVert. That's his first foul.
And there's just one foul now away from the penalty.
And here's Lopez from the arc. Yes, and a nice assist from Jackson. Lopez has got his first 3 points of the game.
Smart shot from Lopez. If he's got a decent look and can avoid putting the ball on the deck, he's got to pull the trigger. Very little resistance around the rim right now. That's the 5th straight bucket they've given up in the paint.
Now here's Lopez. Making a mark on the offensive end, scoring around 13 a game.
Hard to win games when you allow clean looks from the perimeter.
Here's Mann, trailing by 19. Pass to Barlow. Second shot opportunity. To the wing, right side. Shot clock at 5. Another shot. Oh, and that one, no question, powered it down.
Yeah, his athleticism more than makes up for his lack of size. Allows him to compete even against bigger guys.
2 points. That one goes. Lopez has got 5 points now this quarter.
He drops yet another dime, just facilitating this offense like a maestro.
LeVert up top. Pass to Niang. Back to LeVert. No luck on that one. Ooh, excellent D there from Jackson. The Bucks leading by 19. Trent goes in, and it's good for 2.
And just executing at a high level. I mean, taking what the defense allows and putting in the work.
Yeah, come on. They're just having their way out there and continuing to press the advantage.
His
First trip to the free throw line for him tonight. The free throw drops for Lopez.
You know, Brook Lopez has consistently evolved as a player, adding layer after layer to his game and making himself a threat on both ends.
Jackson outside. Here he goes. Oh, and there's the whistle on the shot. So 2 free throws for him coming up. It's on Onyeka Okongwu. No good on the free throw. And he sinks the second. And the Hawks with possession here. There's Young with the 3. The shot won't fall. And so it's Milwaukee with plenty of breathing room. 23 points to end the quarter. They've done well to
55.
And we reach the fourth quarter in a game that may already be out of hand. The Bucks leading by 23. Trent outside. The three-pointer off the mark.
Well, with his team leading, he might just want to put that one in his pocket next time.
They get it again. Pass to Barlow. LeVert outside. This one for three. Rebounded by the Bucks.
Given his range, you'd expect him to capitalize on that opening.
And here's Connaughton for three. Yes, and a nice assist from Jackson.
Here in the second half, they're really focused on stretching the floor.
Yeah, and where has the defense been? They've been content to let them fire away. They've got to close out to the arc.
And here's Porter outside. And again, it's Milwaukee from deep.
This defense is getting spaced out. 3 of the last 5 buckets have come from way beyond the arc.
LeVert, that's good.
Yeah, that's inexcusable. I mean, the defense must push LeVert farther away from the basket than that.
Connaughton can't hit.
That's a look he couldn't pass up. He just couldn't get it to go.
Pass to Matthews. Here's Niang. Rebounded by Lopez.
You can hear him sputtering all the way over here. He knows he should have knocked that one down.
Final quarter here, and we're just over a minute and a half through it. From deep three-point land. Doesn't go for him.
I know that he has the ability and confidence to sink that shot, but better luck next time, maybe.
That's one of those heat check shots, and heat check is a synonym for bad shot.
And, Coach, you've been lauded by some of your former players for your pregame preparation. I've seen it myself in the broadcasting world.
Well, I've also been cursed by some of those players for my pregame walkthroughs, Brian. People thought they were way too long, but I just wanted to be as prepared as possible and was one that always believed I'd rather do too much than too little.
Fourth quarter of play. We're about 2.5 minutes through it now. Here's Krejci. Knocks down the long J. Krejci's got his first bucket of the game, and he's on the board for three.
A Swiss Army knife talent, LeVert is very skilled at setting the table for his teammates.
Porter gets the bucket.
He means business. Unlikely to be a comeback on his watch.
Well, this is how you shut the door, right? You keep making good shots, and you build the lead.
The shot by LeVert, no good.
Yeah, loose coverage by the defense, but he just couldn't make them pay.
Pass to Lopez. Outside Porter. Now here's Connaughton to the right side. Clock at 4. Puts up a three. Another miss by Porter. Here's Atlanta with the ball. LeVert outside. 1:25 left to play in the fourth quarter. One of the biggest challenges for coaches these days, Stan, is roster turnover. How do you deal with the player movement?
Well, look, Brian, it's to be expected, first of all. And second of all, you just, every year starts new. You start from square one every year, and you build it. And if you make an in-season deal, you start over again from square one and build it up.
Well, the scoreboard tells you everything you need to know about this one. A great showing here for the Bucks.
Pretty clear who the better team was today. They dominated in just about every phase of this game, Grant.
B.A., it's almost hard to think what didn't go well for them. Their plan, their execution, everything was absolutely on point.
And their efforts tonight pushed them to 41 wins on the year so far. And what a huge performance it was for Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Well, as a coach, it's so fun to watch a player dominate the game offensively like he did in this one.
Pass to Rizache. Lopez on the double team. They get it back. Okongwu, no good. Here's Antetokounmpo. Rebounded by Daniels. And Atlanta has possession. Shot clock and game clock. 1 second differential. Here's Risacher to the inside. Okongwu, no good. And that's a foul called on Onyeka Okongwu. That's his third foul so far.
Yeah, I think he's letting his emotions get the better of him on that foul.
Hawks foul. 10 seconds. Team seconds. At the line for the Bucks.
No good on that one.
Giannis Antetokounmpo. 2 shots.
And he can't get the second one to drop either. Coming up empty that time. To end the drought. Daniels, that one's true. And here's Lopez. So this one belongs to the Bucks. A statement road victory. So impressive.
Statement indeed, B.A. It was in enemy territory, but they controlled the game and took the crowd completely out of it. That's how you win on the road.
And that about wraps it up.
It's a party. We gon' bring those sparklers out. Time to celebrate. It's a party. I got $5. It's a holiday. We gon' bring those sparklers out. Time to celebrate.
Sorry, man. Tough game tonight. Sorry, man. Tough game tonight.